A former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver called out Todd Monken and the Baltimore Ravens offense, and he might have been right in what he was saying. We talk about that and so much more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens WR, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and now the #1 sports podcast network. Appreciate everybody for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day. Thank you out there to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners. If you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. We have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage and a jam-packed episode today on this game day. Happy game day, Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving. And it's a Thursday night action. Ravens and Bengals are going to play at 8 p.m. in that 8 o'clock window, and we're going to have a lot to talk about today. It's crossover Thursday, too, so happy crossover Thursday. James Rapine of Locked On Bengals will join us to talk about that Ravens and Bengals matchup and preview it, but want to first dive into a former Ravens receiver who called out Todd Monken as well as what Joe Burrow had to say about Lamar Jackson. So want to tell everyone and remind everyone today's crossover Thursday edition of Locked On Ravens is presented by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. All right, Steve Smith Sr., who is one of the best receivers in Ravens history, despite only playing 3 years with the franchise, and that more is kind of telling you where this team is with their receivers and who they've had over the course of their history. This is on the 89, and what Steve Smith mainly was trying to get into was the fact that for Lamar Jackson, or 89, I guess it's called, excuse me, but what he was trying to get into was essentially the fact that Lamar Jackson right now, with his health situation, is that what's kind of making an impact, or is it the offense becoming a bit more stale? That's what the title of this Ravens video says. The Ravens offense is stale. And then he went into a little bit of a conversation saying, quote, I think Todd Monken has to maybe adjust a little bit. Teams have started to figure things out, which I don't disagree with. Steve said, quote, you're now averaging 20 points a game, under 15 in 4 of your last 5 games. That is not the Ravens. And then he went to Lamar Jackson's health, said, I also think possibly it might be Lamar Jackson is a little bit still not 100%. And I think teams are starting to say, hey, we don't have to concern ourselves with Lamar running. So what we're going to do is load up the box and slow down Derrick Henry. And after that, we're going to make you beat us throwing the ball, Lamar. But not because they don't think Lamar Jackson can beat him. It's that he doesn't threaten, and that threat is not there that he can take off running. It's a different Lamar. And so, again, like what Steve is saying is not that teams don't fear Lamar Jackson, but at the same time, it's like with him being a little less than 100%, that threat of him being like the shifty Lamar, what we've seen, that hasn't been on display the past couple of weeks. And, you know, the offensive line not blocking doesn't help things. You know, some of the play calling doesn't help things. You know, obviously some of the throws Lamar's missed doesn't help things, or Henry not being able to get going doesn't help. Like, it's everything. But I do think the predictability of this offense is a bit of a problem. And I've been saying that for a while now, actually, where, you know, it just seems like whether it's the slow starts or the slow ends to certain games, it feels like teams figure it out, whether it's over the course of a week or the season or even a game, like a game-by-game basis. And, you know, while the second half adjustments by Monken in the Jets game were good, you know, it is. I think the best way you can put it is it's a different Lamar Jackson. It's a different Lamar Jackson, which, again, can still beat teams. They are undefeated once he's come back here. So it's not like, oh, the Ravens are losing all these games with Lamar Jackson being injured. Not the case. But, you know, I'm curious to see how he looks in this Bengals game. Obviously, I think the mini bye is going to help him, but his offensive line needs to help him out. His play calling, offensive coordinator Todd Monken needs to help him out. And then Lamar needs to make some of those throws too. And his receivers also need to help him out, right? Those drops were ridiculous too. So people can look, and it's concerning because people do look at Lamar in these games. Oh, look, all this is Lamar's fault. Just not true at all. Everybody has a part to play here, but Joe Burrow going to return for this game for the Bengals. And Joe had a lot of praise for Lamar Jackson. He said, quote, everybody sees how great of a player he is and how hard he works and how he improves every single year. Obviously, I have a lot of respect for him and love competing against him. We know how he's viewed throughout the league. players, coaches, etc. He is very well respected. The 2 games last year were cinema between the Ravens and the Bengals. I hope it'll be the same again, although with the Ravens obviously coming out with a win and a statement, hopefully. But we're going to talk to James Rapien now of Locked On Bengals, what I have into key storylines, key matchups, and so much more for this Thanksgiving night matchup. James, Thanksgiving night, it's a primetime matchup. These 2 teams had 2 incredible matchups last season, both of which the Ravens honestly somehow won. Have no clue how that happened, but somehow the Ravens pulled them out. Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, as you mentioned there, 2 really, really key quarterbacks to their teams, and both guys who are dealing with some things right now. And I have to assume the biggest storyline in Cincinnati right now is Joe Burrow. Is there anything else, or is it all eyes on Joe right now?
All eyes on Joe for sure. Getting Joe Burrow back, especially after going 1-8 without him, it doesn't get much bigger than that. And, there's people in the fan base that are certainly like, why bring him back? They're 3-8. Meanwhile, Joe is like, let's play on Thanksgiving. Let's go to Baltimore. Let's go up against Lamar. Let's see, let's go and compete and see how it plays out. And obviously these 2 have just gone at it. And it's been a lot of fun over the past few years. You had the Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase basically willing the Bengals last year in Baltimore. That's the game I think of. A 3rd straight year, Thursday night in Baltimore. I'll guarantee it right now, Kevin. It will not happen next year. It will not be a Thursday night game in Baltimore. There's just no way the NFL schedule makers do that again. But yeah, it's a huge matchup, and Joe Burrow coming back is a huge story. And I think there are a lot of people that say, all right, well, they don't have a chance. It's 3-8. And fine, I get that and understand it. And they probably don't. But Joe Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks on the planet. And when he's on the field, he matters. He makes them better. And I'm excited to watch him play, even though I do wonder how sharp he is going to be, because he hasn't played since mid-September and has been rehabbing that toe. And it's just been a long time since we've seen him play football.
Yeah, and I also don't think you can keep that man off the field if he's healthy enough to go out there and play with the competitor that he is. And Lamar Jackson is the same way, and that certainly is the biggest storyline in Baltimore right now is Lamar Jackson's health, because he's been banged up over the course of the season. And it's been 3 weeks now straight that he's had a new injury on the injury report. His knee injury, then the ankle injury. Now it's a toe injury. He actually opened up a bit about that on Tuesday and said that toe injury happened in the first quarters. But there's been a lot of vagueness in terms of how these injuries are happening, even what they are. We don't really know. But it's clear that Lamar hasn't looked like himself over these last couple of weeks. And it certainly has set the offense back. Part of that has to do with the offensive line. And he's getting hit so much. I mean, right now, he has a 10% sack percentage, which would be the lowest mark of his career. He's getting hit on a ton of plays. They've struggled on the interior to block guys with their guards like Daniel Falele and Voorhees playing. But somehow still they've won 5 straight games after starting the year 1-5. And that is, it's been incredible, that turnaround. The fact that they were, that Bears game where Lamar didn't play and it was Tyler Huntley, that essentially saved their season and set them up with Lamar coming back to help them out. And their schedule has gotten softer. I mean, earlier in the year, it was you play the Bills week 1, then you get the Lions in week 3 and the Chiefs in week 4. And you're like, all these incredible teams you're playing. Then the injuries start to happen. You lose to the Texans and the Rams. So you're just playing all these great teams. But recently it's been like the Jets and the Browns and the Vikings and all these. So you're doing what you're supposed to do. The defense has gotten back on track after a poor start to the year. But I think for both teams here, James, the 2 biggest storylines are the health status of their quarterbacks. Lamar, he talked about how he's feeling better in some areas. So, it's kind of a wondering situation on both sides of how healthy these 2 guys actually are.
Yeah, I think this game is going to go a really long way. And you could say that about any AFC North game, I guess. But if Baltimore wins this game, they put themselves in position to run away with the North. And they'll have 1-6 straight. They have Pittsburgh next week. And you have the long layoff. Pittsburgh's playing Buffalo. You'd be in position to grab a hold of it. What Joe Burrow is trying to do is lift the Bengals back up after they've blown some games that they should have won. And you mentioned the Jets. That game is going to haunt them all year long, especially if they go on a run but come up short. Like they did it last year. They were 4-8. They look up, they're 9-8. Well, they blew a game against the Steelers at home that they should have won. There's the game that went down to the wire with the Ravens, of course, multiple. It's one of those things where the margin for error without Joe Burrow was so thin. And they, outside of a Thursday night against Pittsburgh at home, just could not get it done. And so can Joe be enough and get them to 4-8, get them to where they hoped they hope to be, where they were last year at 4-8, which is an awful record? We'll see. But I do think that this is just a crazy opportunity for the Ravens to take control of a division that's just sort of been there for the taking for 3 months, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be this wide open at this point, and it is, because the Steelers and the Ravens are obviously neck and neck, and then you have a team in the Bengals that if they wouldn't have just stubbed their toe like Joe multiple times over the past few months would be right there as well.
Yeah, and I look at all these other divisions across the league right now. Like, oh, look at the NFC West with like the Rams and the 49ers and the Seahawks, and like the AFC West, you got like the Broncos and the Chargers and the Chiefs. And then you look at the AFC North, it's like, what's going on in this division? I mean, this used to be one of the better divisions, sometimes one of the best divisions in this league, and it just feels like it's fallen off a cliff here this season, you know, whether it be due to poor play, injuries, you know, the whole 9 yards there. And I know that there was that rare not only division, but intra-Ohio trade between the Bengals and the Browns to get Joe Flacco in the building. And with Joe Burrow coming back, I'm curious, James, of your analysis on, you know, obviously Joe changes so much for the offense when he's out there, but in your estimation, I think mobility is probably one of them, because I've always said it. Joe has sneaky mobility that I don't think people respect enough when he's fully out there and fully healthy. But how did Joe Flacco hold it down since coming over? Because he's continuing his AFC North tour, which I hope does not end with the Steelers. But how did Joe hold it down? And then what does other Joe Burrow, how does he help this offense out?
No, I hope Joe Flacco continues his AFC North tour by sticking in Cincinnati. That's where he should be. He should stay in Cincinnati, given Joe Burrow's injury history, given what the Bengals should do this offseason. I'm getting ahead of myself, but they should definitely be in on Joe Flacco and bringing him back next year. I don't know if he'd be interested, because I think he wants to try to start somewhere. We'll see. I would try to be Joe Burrow's backup. That being said, yeah, he's exceeded expectations. He put them in position to win some of these games. And that's what's so painful. They should have beat the Jets. They had a real shot against the Bears. They were in position at Lambeau 5 days after trading for Flacco. If they get a stop on 3rd and 8, he gets the ball back with the chance to go win the game. So they've had chances and opportunities, and they blew those games. And he started 6 games for them. They could have easily been 3-3 in those 6. And that's with the defense playing really poorly. Even with that said, like, it's just one play here or there that goes their way. One more completion, one more turnover, one more this or that. So he's been a really, really good. And the past couple of weeks, he's come back down to earth a little bit. It's okay. When you look at what he's done, he did his part. And it obviously wasn't enough for the Bengals to win more than one game with him. But that's a lot to do with the defense. That's a lot to do with everything around Joe Flacco than Flacco himself. As far as Burrow, it was wild, Kevin. Like, this is how good Flacco's played. A couple of weeks ago when they activated Burrow, people in town were like, it's not going to make a difference. Fans were like, it's not going to make a difference. And I had to shoot that down right away, because it's Joe freaking Burrow. Like, he always makes a difference. But I see where people were coming from, because the offense was that good for a couple of weeks, and they still lost anyway. And so this defense, they showed signs of life on Sunday against the Patriots. That needs to continue, of course, against a hobbled Lamar Jackson, against a Ravens offense that has just had its way with this defense in recent years.
Yeah, and the Ravens defense certainly let down the Ravens offense earlier in the season, especially that week 1 game against the Bills, which they blew, and, you know, a bunch of other games. They've found their stride recently, and it's kind of been the opposite for the offense, where they have kind of lost their mojo again with Lamar's injury and other things as well. But I always love the respect that Joe and Lamar have for one another. Yeah. Joe had some really nice comments on Lamar. Lamar, you know, has talked about Joe, and the respect those two have for each other. It's really cool to see, and they'll match up on Thanksgiving night. Coming up in the second part of the show, we will talk about some other matchups to watch on both the Ravens offense versus Bengals defense, and then, of course, Bengals offense versus Ravens defense. So be sure to stay tuned. We have so much coming your way here on this crossover Thursday edition of both Locked On Ravens and Locked On Bengals. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next, the fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And for me in the NBA, I'm a big Denver Nuggets guy. And right now, they've started off pretty strong over on FanDuel. Their championship odds actually are at plus 700. The only team ahead of them in that regard is the Oklahoma City Thunder at plus 155, the defending champions there. So I like what Denver did this offseason. I think they have a really good shot. And I like that number a lot over on FanDuel. Right now, FanDuel's giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Moving along on Locked On Ravens and Locked On Bengals, Kevin Oestreicher and James Rapien still talking with you here on a Thanksgiving edition of the show. So happy Thanksgiving. And of course, we're so thankful to everybody who tunes in to both Locked On Ravens and James, for you and Locked On Bengals, the communities that all these shows have on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's been absolutely incredible. So did you have a Thanksgiving? Is there like a side you love or maybe a hot Thanksgiving food take that you have?
Oh, a hot Thanksgiving food. No, I mean, I sort of prefer ham over turkey in general. Like I'll eat plenty of turkey anyway. Like by the time some people are listening and or watching this, I'll be probably stuffed of turkey. So it's not like I have to go that route, but no, like I like it all. I don't crave it. I think it's one of those things. I don't crave like Thanksgiving meal. I don't think about it in the middle of May, but when it's here and made, I'm all in, baby. I think that's the way it is. Obviously, the pie is probably what I crave the most. Pecan pie, pumpkin pie, the two pies I would go with.
Yeah, pumpkin. I'm an apple pie guy.
I like apple. You like the apple crumble, the traditional apple? Which one you?
I've gotten into the apple crumble recently.
The crumble is good.
Yeah. I wasn't, because that's also me with gravy. Like I wasn't a huge gravy person early. Like I didn't really like it, but now I've learned to appreciate it a little bit more. So
I'm into some gravy now.
Yeah.
A good gravy that's tough to beat.
Hey, and I'll tell you, one of these teams, Star's going to be eating some turkey legs after this game. So we're going to see who it is, whether it's Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow, whoever it is going to get that turkey leg, or maybe they'll throw a turducken out there. I don't know if they're going to do that for the night game this year, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see. I'm not sure, but speaking of matchups, we could honestly probably do like a Thanksgiving food bracket and do matchups one by one. But in terms of these two teams, I'll let you start off with a matchup you're really curious about, whether it's, Bengals offense, Bengals defense, Ravens offense, Ravens defense. What are you thinking?
Well, for me, it's Joe Burrow against this entire Ravens defense, and who has whose number early. Can they get pressure on him? Will the Bengals be able to run the ball like they've done in recent weeks with Chase Brown to take some pressure off of Joe? Will the Bengals just say, you know what, we're gonna drop back, we're gonna pass. Jamar Chase is here. We're without T. Higgins. It doesn't matter. We're gonna be the normal. The team we saw last year on Thanksgiving or on Thursday Night Football in Baltimore, where it was literally the Joe and Jamar show. I wonder. I think that's such a key, because I can't in good conscience look at this Bengals defense and say, all right, well, they're going to slow down Lamar Jackson. They're going to slow down Mark Andrews. They're going to slow down Isaiah Likely. I assume Likely's playing. But like, they've been awful against tight ends. The Bengals have. Just awful. And so this has gotten tight end city written all over it. And Lamar Jackson has just been dominant against the Bengals. So I look at it and I'm like, all right, well, how do you compete in this game? You compete because of Joe Burrow. And so I think the game is really going to be decided. Will it be competitive and go down to the wire like these matchups have, or will it not? How Joe Burrow, how this offense is able to score and move the ball against this Ravens defense.
Yeah. Lamar certainly likes playing the Bengals. He's had a lot of success, like you mentioned. And, I'm going to stick so far with what you're saying about the Ravens defense, but Jamar Chase has to be the number one priority for this Ravens defense, especially with no T. Higgins. And wasn't there a stat, James? T hasn't played in Baltimore for like the majority of his career. Like he's missed a lot of Ravens games. I know that. And so it's been interesting because, like you mentioned, Joe and Jamar show, them kind of willing, and, regardless of who else is out there, and you have guys like Yossi Vosh, who's really, really good in my opinion. I think he's really coming on. Tinsley's been a guy that has made some noise. Like there are others besides Jamar Chase but Jamar Chase is the guy you have to focus on. Jamar's stats against the Ravens, he loves it. He's 7 receptions on 11 targets, 120 yards per game, and a full touchdown per game. He's had obviously the 200-yard games, which, speaking of that Thursday night game, 264 and 3 touchdowns, which is just unbelievable. So cloud coverage, bracket coverage, throw 3 corners on him at once, like whatever you have to do to stop Jamar Chase, because you can live with a Yoshivash beating you or a Tinsley, or, you get one of the tight ends or running backs involved out of the backfield. Okay, you live with it, but Jamar Chase is going to make impact plays. The ability that he has, in my opinion. So whether it's Nate Wiggins or Chidobe Awuzie, who's had a really good year. I know he's a guy in Cincinnati you're very familiar with as well.
He should not be in Baltimore. I'll just say it now. He should not be in Baltimore. This is not hindsight. I was like, go get him. He's free. The Titans are paying him. And when the Ravens signed him, I was like, oh my gosh. Because I just knew Cheeto's mentality. Like, he was going to bounce back. He was coming off of the knee and got paid a lot in Tennessee. Expectations are much different when you're making league minimum. And he's played well for Baltimore. Good for him.
He's earned himself a nice payday, especially because that was the thing. I 100% agree with you. It's like Tennessee's paying him. Nothing to lose there in terms of where he goes, in terms of a big contract. He can sign for a minimum and then rebuild his value. He certainly has done that. And so I'm sure we're going to see some Jamar Chase versus Chidobe Awuzie matchups, Nate Wiggins as well. We're going to have those opportunities for those guys in Baltimore. So I think that's a really big one. Another one that I'm curious about is, especially how the Bengals defend the deep part of the field. The Ravens haven't gotten that going a lot this year, especially when it comes to getting those 30, 40-yard shots down the field. And so the Bengals' deep part of the field, and that's secondary, because we know, the Bengals defense has been a big topic of conversation, a big concern point, last in the league in scoring, last in the league in yards. It's been tough. And another former Raven who actually had a pick 6 on Sunday is Geno Stone. How's Geno played over in Cincinnati? I know last year, if I'm not mistaken, was kind of rough for Geno. Has it gotten better for him this season? No. I know this is the last year of his deal. And what does that back end look like, especially now that there's no more Cam Taylor-Britt, but there are other guys, I think, like DJ Turner, I think, has played really well this year.
DJ Turner has played well, and he's been a guy that's came on and feels like he's a piece of the present and future. And so that's been huge for this team. I would describe Geno Stone as extremely underwhelming, really from the jump of when they signed him. And that's continued. He was really good last week. That was his best game as a Bengal. But overall, if you're watching on YouTube, by the way, I had to get my laptop charger. I was trying to yank it out of my bag as we're recording here. So that's what I was doing. But I was really pleased with what I saw from Geno Stone last week, because the criticism, and I've been one of his loudest critics, was really loud. And from the jump, from the very first play, you just saw the effort, the intensity. And so my question now is, all right, well, road game, got to have it game, former team. What do I see? Do I see the same guy? And so I'm curious to see how he responds. Dax Hill moved to outside corner last week, got called for a couple of penalties. I think he's a really good player. I think Bengals fans are a little more iffy. We'll see how he does. I would put him, they need to figure out this tight end situation. I would be willing to put him on tight ends a bit and not just exclusively wide receivers. And whether it's Dax Hill or DJ Ivey or someone, just because the Bengals linebackers have really struggled while guarding tight ends really all season long, but certainly over the past few weeks.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting because, Isaiah Likely hasn't had a wonderful season this year. It's kind of been underwhelming, especially in a contract year. He had a foot injury he suffered in training camp, and I know stuff like that's pretty tough to come back from. And then, of course, Lamar missed a month. So he was playing with Cooper Rush, which was a disaster. And then Tyler Huntley was a little better, but, he hasn't really had a lot of time this season to establish more chemistry with Lamar. Even a guy like Rashod Bateman, who was, John Harbaugh said he was a full participant, and, we're going to wait to see on today, whether he's going to be active and play. But Rashod Bateman also has kind of struggled this season in terms of stats, but the impact. Zay Flowers has been like the guy in that offense in terms of target share, yards, touchdowns, etc. Like, that's the guy. It's not Jamar Chase, obviously, but, it's kind of like that. He's getting all the love from Lamar Jackson. He spread the ball out a little bit more over the course of the last couple of weeks, getting the tight ends a little bit more involved. Yeah. And, Mark Andrews has had his moments, but like last week against the Jets, there were also a lot of drops from the receivers. And, with Lamar already struggling and being banged up and the O-line doing what it's doing in Baltimore, it's that's a recipe for disaster. Luckily, they got it going. The second half adjustments were fine, but Lamar's taken a lot of hits this year and have contributed to his injuries, particularly on that O-line. And I know with Cincinnati, James not having Trey Hendrickson in this game, who has had his moments against the Ravens over the course of his Bengals tenure, who on that D-line is now taking on bigger roles? Has anybody stepped up? Have you seen anything there? Because, anybody in Baltimore will tell you that the offensive line is the number one concern point right now for this team, because Lamar Jackson, you hate to use the term, but happy feet. It seems like Lamar's getting that a little bit back there, because I'm not sure he fully trusts his O-line.
Myles Murphy has had a couple of big weeks and was really disruptive 2 weeks ago against the Steelers. Last week, I thought he had some nice flashes. It's got to continue. It's very Geno Stone-like, where, and it's different because you're talking about a first-round pick, not just a free agent signing, but a first-round pick. It's year 3. It feels like the light bulb might have turned on. It needs to turn on. They desperately need that to stay on, and need this to be really an 8-game stretch, the past 2 weeks, and then the final 6 games of this regular season, as Myles Murphy is that kind of player. He is who we thought he is. It just took him 2.5 years to get there. And it might. He hasn't had a ton of snaps, just crossed the 1,000 snap threshold in his NFL career. And so that's a guy that I would look at and say, all right, number 99 has to be disruptive. I would say on the interior, Chris Jenkins and McKinley Jackson have flashed a little bit. They need more there for sure. We'll see. The Bengals pass rush hasn't been good. They were better against the run against the Patriots, had multiple nice goal line stands. They need to be stingy that way and stubborn, even if they're going to give up points and yards, make it tough on opponents. It hasn't always been that way this year. So we'll see. It's a tough challenge against Baltimore.
Yeah. Can I actually flip this conversation to the Ravens D-line versus the Bengals O-line?
Let's do it.
Because I think that because the Bengals, correct me if I'm wrong, James, the Bengals O-line has been a huge issue in recent seasons, but this year it's been better in a lot of different aspects, right? And so with the Ravens D-line, I'll throw out a stat for you. Mike Green now has 2.5 sacks for the Ravens. He is their new sack leader. That just happened in week 12. Their old sack leader was Nnamdi Madubuike with 2, who hasn't played since week 2. So it's been a huge problem. It's gotten a lot better, though. They brought in Draymond Jones. Mike Green has started to flash. Travis Jones on the interior. But that matchup to me is really intriguing. Do you feel the same way?
For sure, because this Bengals offensive front obviously needs to protect Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow might not be able to move like normal Joe Burrow. He'll move better than Joe Flacco. But you don't want him to have to move. You want to be able to sit in the pocket, throw darts, hand the ball off to Chase Brown, make quick reads, get the ball out of his hand because of what he's coming back from. And so this Bengals offensive front, I think, is playing much better now than they were early in the season. Orlando Brown Jr. played well the other day. Dalton Reisner it really stepped up at right guard, and I thought had a really good game. And you look at it, and Dylan Fairchild coming along as a rookie at left guard. It's starting to come together. Amarius Mims, last year's first-round pick, has just been really steady at right tackle. So we'll see. Ted Karras is a very steady center. Can they hold up? I will say this. If Mike Green gets a sack or a pressure or anything, Bengals fans are going to be like, see, I told you I wanted Mike Green the whole time. And I get it. He got off to a slow start, but Bengals fans will certainly be paying close attention to that.
Yeah, it's funny. Week 3, Matt Derrick and I had a crossover, and he said that Detroit fans wanted Mike Green more than anything in that draft. And that was the guy that they had circled. And it felt like that. Obviously, Shamar Stewart, he's done for the year, right? Shamar Stewart's done, or is he?
He's not. He's on injured reserve. I don't know if he's done for the year. He will not play in either Ravens matchup. So
okay, yeah,
Baltimore doesn't have to worry about him.
Mike Green, he's definitely turned. A lot of the rookies, honestly, for Baltimore have been a lot better recently, and that's just got some guys start slow. They're rookies. They're still learning, and then as the year goes on, they come along. So really excited for a lot of these young players on both teams to hopefully show what they have and come up in the final part of the show. We'll talk about how each team can pick up a win in this game, some keys to victory. So be sure to stay tuned. Plenty coming your way on Locked On Ravens and Locked On Bengals. Locked On Ravens, Locked On Bengals, Kevin Oestreicher, James Rapien. We're still rocking out with you on this Thanksgiving edition of the show. I want to remind everyone again that this episode is presented by PrizePicks. Now the PrizePicks app today, use code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. All right, James, keys to victory. What do you think the Bengals have to do to pull off a win in Baltimore? And I'll actually go a step further than what you said in the first part of the show. I'm going to say not only will there not be a Thursday night Ravens-Bengals matchup in Baltimore, the Bengals are going to get one primetime game against Baltimore next season in Cincinnati. I think that's almost a guarantee in my mind. So what do you think for this primetime game the Bengals have to do to pull it off?
Yeah, first things first. I think they're going to have to score 30 plus. I think this offense is going to have to play well. They're going to have to be efficient, effective, put pressure on Baltimore to do the same thing. And especially early on, getting points on the board, settling in, not looking up and it being 10-0 and the crowd's going crazy. Look, M&T Bank Stadium, I've been there for primetime games. If you don't get off to a good start, the environment just continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's just tough in Joe Burrow's first game back. He's not going to be overwhelmed. He'll be calm, cool, and collected, but that's just not where you want to be. So offense scoring 30 plus, I think that's important. 2, you're going to have to find a way to disrupt Lamar Jackson, get him off of his, and I get it. People are talking about the past couple of weeks and he's nicked up and all of those things. I can't consider any of that because anytime I see Lamar Jackson going up against stripes, this man just turns into the MVP in an MVP player. He obviously led them. I mean, the touchdown last year that he threw, I believe it was on 4th down. Or 3rd down after a stop, just so effortless in the red zone. And it was the game-winning touchdown to Rashod Bateman, I believe it was. Like, he just makes it look effortless. You cannot let Lamar get in that zone. Whatever that zone is, he cannot get there. Obviously, other teams have that formula at times. The Bengals just haven't. And then number 3, the turnovers. This Bengals defense, when they've won games, they've only won 3 games. When they've won games, they've forced turnovers. They've given the ball back and gotten the ball to their offense in advantageous spots. On the road, division rival, a team in Baltimore who can really grab a stranglehold on the AFC North. I think that's going to be huge. So a lot of eyes on the defense, but Joe Burrow and company, they're going to have to put up 30 plus, I think, if the Bengals are going to win.
Yeah, and for the Ravens, I like what you said, because for Baltimore, you said that touchdown to Rashod Bateman, effortless in the red zone. The red zone has been anything but effortless for the Ravens this season, because last year they were the number 1 red zone offense in the league. They converted on 74.2% of their red zone opportunities for touchdowns, which was unbelievable. This year, they have fallen all the way down to 30th at 46.3%. They have not been able to convert those opportunities into touchdowns. Tyler Loop, who's now the Ravens kicker for Justin Tucker, he's been great at just, chipping those balls in, kicking field goals from the 4-yard line, 3-yard line, but the Ravens have not been able to convert in the red zone. So number 1, you have to be able to convert, because this Bengals offense, as I mentioned earlier, they played like the Jets offense, which is not great. The Browns offense, which, they had 2 rookies, including Shedeur Sanders, playing his first ever NFL snaps with no preparation. You have the Vikings offense. We've seen how that's gone in recent weeks. This Bengals offense, regardless of no T. Higgins, etc., night and day better than what you faced over the last handful of weeks. So the Ravens offense is going to have to respond to that, because while the Ravens defense has done a great job of keeping the Ravens offense attached, and, the Ravens offense eventually gets it, I think, the red zone's huge. And I think the Ravens also have to get off to a fast start. I think it could come down to which team starts off better, could determine who wins this game. So those are 2 keys for me. And then finally, being able to convert in short yardage situations. The Ravens, and the stats back it up, they've been better on 3rd and longs than they have been on 3rd and shorts. And that's not the Ravens' identity. I mean, no. I trust them to pick up 15 yards more than I trust them to pick up 5 yards. I mean, that's just how it's been for them this season. And the Ravens, it's been their identity. It's okay, we're just going to throw in our heavier personnel. You have to match it. We're just going to blow you off the ball, open up these huge rushing lanes, and you're not going to be able to stop it. And while the Ravens have been more balanced under Todd Monken, this is year 3, they haven't been able to run the ball effectively because the offensive line has struggled there. Pass blocking, while the tackles were great last week, it's that interior that's really struggled for them. So being able to protect your quarterback, open up those rushing lanes, it all starts up front for both an offense and defense. And it really could just come down to whose trench play is better, who can protect their quarterback better and get those opportunities, to where we know that Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, if they have a clean pocket, they're impossible to stop. When you blitz them and you don't get that pressure, they're impossible to stop. They both work really well there. So offensive line play is a massive, massive key for me. James is great. Be sure to check him out over at Locked On Bengals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Again, on the way out, hit the like and subscribe button in video form. Follow along and subscribe in audio form. We're going to have so much game day, game night content for you. The watch along, the instant reaction show, the Locked On Ravens squad show. And I can't say enough how thankful I am for the community we've built up here on Locked On Ravens. Started this up in 2019 and reflecting every single year on just how much the show has grown, creeping up on 17,000 subscribers in video form. Audio form continues to grow every single day. We have all these great communities in the big community of Locked On Ravens. Thank you for all the support over the years, whether you are an everyday or you've listened one time or, you tune in now and then. Every listen, every watch, every like, comment, message of support, it means the world to me. So I'm very thankful for everything we've built here on Locked On Ravens and very thankful for you and the community that we built here as well. So I'll see you back here later tonight. We'll do all of our game day / game night festivities, and I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.